Hey everyone, in this video we're going to do the unboxing and installation of the new Beagle UV sensor, which will allow us to do time-lapse video on our resin printer. We'll go ahead and kind of unbox it here. So we've got, this is the filament sensor, a nice little quick start guide showing how we'll install it. With the Halot one from Creality, this is going to install a little bit differently, as we'll have to drill a hole in the frame in order to get the camera sensor through. And then in the bottom here we've got our power supply. So I'll move these off to the side here. I'll even take this sensor and put it off the side for the time being. So here we've got the Halot one from Creality. We're not going to need to remove all the screws, but we also can't just remove the bottom in order to get to the panel. So I'll spin it around the back here and we'll show the first screws to remove. So I'm going to want to remove these two screws here. You'll see we've got one here and one here, so I'll want to remove those two. We'll be using a 2mm Allen key. Only two of these screws are of a different size. Those are the ones that attach up the top here. So we'll show you how those go. And then towards the right-hand side of the machine, you'll notice that this panel is actually removable, so we'll want to remove this panel as well before we flip it over. Okay. Then we've got two more up top. These are the two screws that are the longer screws. So we just want to make sure we remember to put the longer ones back. You'll see how easy this panel just pops right off. And actually now this is a good time before flipping it over. Make sure we pull off our resin tank. Set that somewhere off the side safely. Don't want to get that dirty. And I'll go ahead and lay the machine down now. I'm going to lay it on its side, as I find that's easier to get to the bottom, since the IEC power port is on the bottom or on the back. So there's a bunch of screws. I do not need to remove all of them. I just need to remove the ones that are actually holding the bottom plate to the UV chamber, and then this one front up here. So I've got two screws here need to be removed. These two stay, so don't do those. So these two, these three, and then these two. The bottom ones here, the bottom three are for the power supply. You do not need to remove those. You just need to remove these, and these. And that'll put the, make the bottom loose. Be able to be slid out. Yep, there we go. All right. So I've got my fan housing wire here, which is kind of hard to see. I got my fan wire here, and I've got the power supply wire. We are going to have to drill a hole, so what I'm going to do is just actually remove the fan. This will be the easiest, allowing me to have a little extra slack to lay the bottom plate down before we drill through it. I'm going to try to drill top down. That way I keep all the dust and things to a minimum. I want to try to keep the metal shavings out as well, obviously. Okay. So now we'll get a better idea of where we're going to need to install this UV sensor cable. Since, as I mentioned, the entire UV housing is sealed with the Creality Halot one. So this is our UV housing here. And what you'll notice is that there is no gap anywhere here. This is where the cable needs to go. So there is no gap that will allow me to run the cable through. And then when I put the base on, it would squish the cable. Drilling a hole through here could be done. Could pretty much be drilled anywhere, but doing that would run a really good chance of getting metal shavings inside the housing here, and I really don't want to do that. But what I did notice is I've got an opening here, where the cable would be very easy to slide into, and that point can be referenced really easily, and so it'll make it easy to measure to drill on the bottom plate here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this distance from here to right here where I want the cable to go. You can see up top here. I'll be able to draw a straight line, measure that distance, and then I'll drill my hole in the bottom plate here to be able to have that cable run through. I'll do my best here to move this back so you can see. All right, so let me get my... Okay. And so we've got a distance of... I'd like to try to get it to where it can drop down into here. So I'm going to say we've got 15, let's say 17 millimeters would be a good distance. So I'll be able to come to the plate here, measure 17 millimeters away. By the way, keeping a little flathead screwdriver is great, keeping that around to be able to mark metal before you drill or cut. So I'm going to mark 17 millimeters here. Going to make sure I get it in line, and then just there we go. And I've got my little mark right here for where I'll drill through, and that should give me a nice hole to be able to run the sensor through. Let me get where I set the sensor. So with the sensor comes some really nice tape and actually a Velcro piece as well, so you can attach it however you need to. I'll probably be mostly using the tape with this installation just to make sure nothing moves. So here's the end of the sensor. This is really cool. It's a 3D printed housing that gives you all the information as well as the USB-C for power. And this is what we'll need to be drilling through. I think this is probably going to be along the lines of a 5/32 or a 3/16. Let's check with 3/16. That's a little small. I might actually just jump up a little bit bigger here to the 13/64 just to make sure I have plenty of room. And actually that's still looking a little small too. All right. I guess it's a bit bigger than I thought. We'll be able to use tape to close the end up so we won't have any light leak inside, and that's the really important thing, is not have any light leaking into the chamber. So this is 7/32 will work for this. Let me get my just going to put a block of a wasted 3D print underneath here just to keep it from going through the table, which shouldn't obviously be a problem. And luckily being ultra precise here is certainly not a concern, as this is just a general kind of spot for the cable to come through. We have a fair amount of wiggle room. Let's make sure we pass through here safely. And all right, that's what we wanted. Okay. I'm not going to even need to tape it in here because it's going to be better to tape this on the bottom. So I can actually leave this loose. That'll actually give me more flexibility as I close everything back up. So let me turn it a bit here. I'm going to need to, obviously, this was meant for up here. Okay. What we can do now too is before we start screwing this all back together, let's well, we could test it, but I've actually gonna need to plug it in just to test it. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and plug the power supply in, run a test, and I'll show you how the test looks on the sensor. So I'll do is I'll turn this around this way. Let me get the printer plugged in. Okay, we'll let that fire up so you can see the screen, and then I'll plug in the I gotta say, it's really super cool that Mintion Beagle uses all USB-C. So USB-A on the power supply and then USB-C for the sensor. I like that. Have USB all over the house, C all over the house. All right, so I'll plug in the sensor here because we're just going to say do a quick test. So you'll see the blue light showing that the sensor is on. And when it detects UV, it'll actually flash really quickly 3 times to show it's detecting UV. So if I go into settings here and I do my cleaning, hit OK, I should see this blue light flash 3 times really quickly. Yep, there we go. All right, so we know it's working, so we can actually turn that off. Bottom. So let's go ahead and check our sensor here. Looks pretty good. I'm going to try to leave it kind of right where the actual cable starts right here, and then get it taped up. I'm glad I did it across the top so I can keep track of where the sensor is versus where the power cable is. So I'm going to avoid the foot here. Actually going to do one right here first. Kind of give it a good squeeze. That is some super nice tape. I'm going to go ahead and place one over the opening that we made as well, just to make sure I don't get any of that light leak I was talking about. Leave those vent holes open. Man, that looks really nice. That tape is awesome. Here we are getting excited about tape. All right. All right. All done. We have successfully installed the UV sensor on our Creality Halot 1. All done. Next comes plugging it in, setting it up, and getting it connected with the Mintion Beagle camera.